Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Live Company Group PLC Investor Update. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Just please simply type in your questions at any time and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we would like to submit the following poll, and your participation, I'm sure, will be most greatly appreciated by the company. I'd now like to hand over to Chairman David Secretera. Good afternoon, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon. I'm accompanied by Sarah and Nicola, who are also on the call with me, and we'll answer some questions individually. I think we've got a short presentation to go through with you, and that's really genuinely for the people who perhaps it's their first time to explain who we are. Some of you would have seen it before, so apologies for that. What is our vision and who are we? We're obviously an AIM-listed business with 4 key divisions. One is Brick Live, which you will all be familiar with, toy-based brick tours, shows and consumer kits. Kpop Europa is a 50% brand owner and touring promoter of Kpop.flex festivals. Then there's obviously Live Company Sports and Entertainment, which is a global sports and entertainment business, which is primarily based in South Africa. And we are an owner now of Start, the physical and curated digital art platform, and art fairs. So next, if we could roll on the slide there. A little bit about Brick Live in the Park. Perhaps, Nicola, you could explain that.
Yes, absolutely. Brick Live in the Park is our return to actual physical in-person events as a company. The event is taking place starting on the 20th of August in Battersea Park in the Evolution Centre. And we're looking forward to hopefully having up to 5,000 people a day in the centre.
If we move on to the next slide. These are just some images. We've got 13 tours currently out. Paddington has got some press this week in the Times and other newspapers. Paddington will also be making an appearance at Brick Live in the Park.
Yes.
Next slide. We've obviously got 2 Kpop.flex rebranded as K.flex. We'll come back to that in a while, in Frankfurt and London. And we're also looking at making new shows, new festivals. And we're working on that now, and there'll be some announcements in the near future on that. Perhaps this is Start Art Global. We are now changing the economics of the platform that we have. So it's a paid-for platform, so people pay per month to be on it. There will be a bronze level charge where there's no charge, but at the top end of the spectrum, people are paying £1,200 a month to be on the platform. We move on to the next page. We have 2 art fairs, one in Seoul and one in London. The one in Seoul is at the beginning of September, and the one in London is in October, with freeze in London. Good news was this morning we've actually sold out every inch of the Start Art Fair London. It's complete sellout in terms of the content. So next page. This is just some images of the launch of the Start Art Fair in Seoul, which is also against freeze in Seoul. We're very fortunate to have some very good local partners who have underwritten everything, so we only make money from this show. It's not something that we have any risk to do with. So if we move on to the next, this is just a slide showing that we are launching we've just launched a prize in London, sponsored by Martins Miller's Gin, which is for the best young artist, primarily based in London. Let's move to the next slide.
That's great, David. That is the end of the slide deck that we have this morning. So thank you for that very brief overview of the different business units. David, as you know, we did receive a number of questions from investors ahead of today's meeting. And if I may just encourage those on the call to just simply type in the questions in the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of your screen. And I will now pose as many of these questions as we can to David and the team. So David, if I may start with the first question, which is why has it taken a long while to publish the results from the Kpop in Frankfurt? Maybe I could just pose that one to start.
I think it's generally because we have so many different partners, and primarily we have a promoter who's German and an artist provider and showmaker who is Korean, and they're still going through some of their own internal invoicing structures, etc. We're very, very, very close to finishing this, and I would expect the results to be available by the middle of August, if not before.
Thank you very much indeed. And if I may carry on along that theme, it says, what lessons have been learnt from the first K-pop concert? Feedback indicates perhaps longer slots for artists would be well received.
We've made, obviously, we, for those who remember, we signed up in December and we're running a show in May, and we learnt a great deal. I think one of the key issues we learnt was we have to have more of a defined artist contracts, so that we're looking at lengthening the number of songs or time that each artist is presenting. We're also looking at creating a special warm-ups for the next year's Frankfurt show. We obviously have taken into account all the various fan issues and questions and whatever that were there, and I would expect that the show in Frankfurt will be similar but different, with significant improvement in the areas where the fans felt that they wanted different things. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Nicola.
No, we have taken on board pretty much everything the fans had to say, and we totally appreciated and respected their feedback and their comments. And as David said, it has been a learning curve, but I can assure you that going forwards, those things, the comments have been taken on board and things will change.
That's great. Thank you, guys. Turning into the next question, if I may, which reads as follows. Looking at the amount of offered merchandise, the main part of offered goods was Kpop Flex merchandise. How well did the merchandise sell? And for the upcoming Kpop Flex events, will the whole variety of merchandise be available in the online shop prior to the event, or do you also keep it with just a few items like this year?
Do you want to go into that, Nicola?
Yep, I'll go into that, not a problem. Yes, there will be new merchandise available for each event. That will be event-specific merchandise. And we are hoping also to potentially collaborate further with the artists to extend those lines. More of it will be available in advance online, although we do like to hold back, and with our merchandise partner, we like to hold back a lot of things to make them more show-specific, so that the people who've paid for the tickets and attend them can have the first priority to buy that and be seen in the merchandise. As for merchandise sales with the last event, sales were very strong. I will say that I believe the strongest area were the flexi characters themselves.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed, Nicola. When do you expect ticket sales to peak? The biggest push for ticket sales would come alongside the lineup announcement. I just wondered if you could give any further colour on that.
Nicola?
For which event are we speaking about specifically?
The Kpop Flex 2020, the upcoming Kpop.
Let's just talk about Frankfurt. I think that's...
Okay. So regarding Frankfurt, we do believe that once we do make the announcement of the main acts, that's when we anticipate ticket sales to be at their peak.
So basically, we're looking to launch the 2023 artists in the latter end of the autumn 2022, and similar to last year, it's pre-Christmas and just post-Christmas, and then all the artists will have been announced. Unlike last year, we will be, as you can see, tickets are on sale already for the 2 days. The results so far have been very strong without any artists having been announced. So we look forward to announcing the artists in the autumn.
Thank you, David. There's a couple of questions in one here, but I'll do my best to throw them at you. Who calculated the value of Start Art? When will the revenue numbers for Start Art be audited? And can you be more specific on the Kpop Flex merchandising and that it will be included in the Start Art revenues going forward?
Do you want to do that, sir, or shall I do it?
I can do the first part. So who calculated the value of Start Art? So that was done, unfortunately I can't use their names, but it's a top 3 accountancy firm or top 5 accountancy firm within the UK. It's not PwC, but you could probably work out which one it is by saying that. Start Art is a private company, so the numbers were audited as part of the live company group audit because we had an investment in it, and will be included in future audits. So you will see those in potentially, no, you won't see them in the interims because that's the end of 30th of June. So next year you will see the audited parts, the audited figures for the division of Star Art. Perhaps, Nicola, you can help on the Kpop merchanting question, if that's okay.
I'll make it easy for you.
Okay, fine.
The online merchandising results, there's a percentage of those of the online merchandising that goes directly through Start. Now, obviously, through Live Company is the same company, but there's quite a significant potential from the online merchandising as the Kpop grows. And it was previously just as in Start, but now obviously Start is absorbed within Live Company, so it's Live Company.
That's great. Thank you, guys. Are you still looking to seek sponsorship for future K-pop festivals?
Yes, without being specific, obviously the sponsorship cycle is most sponsorship budgets are worked out in the autumn, September through to November. Specifically, Korean brands close all their sponsorships in November for the following year. We have sponsorship proposals out to certain brands in Korea, and we are going to be working next year hand in hand with SBS on those sponsorship sales. I'm going out to Korea within the next 2 weeks to start that process, and we have interest already from 2 different Korean brands. They were interested last year, but didn't have the time, nor did it fit their budget cycle. So we've maintained the contact, and it's a very big thing for us to get right next year, because obviously we hope that there will be more festivals than obviously the one that we started with this year, and the more festivals, the more value, and therefore that's obviously sponsorships are obviously an important part of the mix going forward.
Thank you, David. If I may turn to the next question, which reads as follows: why has Kpop.flex been renamed K.flex? Seems crazy to omit the K-pop part, as it's the draw. Is it what draws the fans?
I'd just like to say it's not actually admitted. What we did, working with our partners, specifically SBS in Korea, was to everybody had views on it, and we've ended up with K.flex, and then there's a byline underneath. So the word K-pop, whether it's a global K-pop or whether it's a Pacific seasonal K-pop or it's German K-pop, when it's seen, it will have a strapline underneath, and that will have the word K-pop in it.
If you don't mind, if David, if I can answer further into that question, I believe you alluded to, for example, on social media with the hashtag and tag, etc. We don't lose hashtag Kpop flex at all. So simply the accounts that we have, whether they're Twitter or Instagram or anything, YouTube, you name it, they still have exactly the same name. It's just that what you see is K.flex. So if somebody does hashtag Kpop flex, it still goes to that account. So it's kind of like just changing your trading as name, but not your actual company name.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. If I may, the final of the pre-submitted questions, David, when are we likely to know if the Formula E will go ahead in Cape Town?
Well, the official calendar, I think, is published in October. The track, it was all to do with making sure that all of the specific infrastructure was up and running. Everyone was very happy with it. My colleagues from Cape Town are over this weekend to attend the London Formula E. Lots of conversations are taking place. I would expect the inclusion to be announced before October, because we are well down the line in the areas which we had to cover.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. Well, as you guys can see, we've received a number of further questions through the live presentation. So, if I may, I'll just start in the order that they came in. And the first one says, "Please, can you outline StartArt's revenue streams?"
Yes, there's both the physical and the digital. The physical is really easy to understand. We're looking to build a series of startup fairs. The original one in London in its 9th year this year, will be 10 years next year. That's a profitable project. The Seoul event is profitable for us in year 1. And obviously we hope that will grow. We're looking at other venues to build the Start brand in terms of the art fair. We've also created a brand called Start Plus, which is a pop-up gallery show, which again is driven to extend the Start brand, but also to make profits from those events. On the digital side, we alluded to very quickly in the presentation, we are looking to change the structure commercially, and we will be charging people to be on the site. We're very happy with the number of artists we've got, the curated quality of the artists, but we are now going to be charging for them to be on the site. So that's another revenue stream. We're also in discussion with Pacific partners about developing how we can expand the digital site. There'll be announcements about that after I've returned from Korea next September.
That's great. Thank you, David. A couple of questions, one from Jamie and one for Jack, but I'll try and combine them together. Is there plans to have another Kpop festival this year? And the further question is, how many will there be in 2023?
Well, I can only tell you what we'd like to do because I'm not allowed to say anything on this call. We've been working throughout the summer. In fact, I haven't had much summer actually. We've been working on the possibility of having another show, another festival this year, i.e. 2022. We've got, I think, 6, maybe more than that, because we've had some reports in today, but we've got a definite 6 interested parties for 2023, of which we've announced 2. Obviously, there's Frankfurt, and we've already announced London, and we are in discussions with another 4 different venues to potentially spread it across the year. The key thing for me is if you look at, it's a bit like running sports events. At the end of the day, you've got to create a calendar for both cash flow and results. And we're keen to begin something in the first quarter, and that's what I'm currently working on. We obviously have Frankfurt, which is in June. We have London, which is in September. And we will have an event towards the end of the year. So it's really where we put the other events. So we're just working on a process, and part of that is obviously the key to everything to do with what we do is the artists coming out of Korea. And we were pretty successful in Frankfurt, and to a certain extent, that was great. We were the first out to the box after the pandemic, but now the artists, like everybody else, it's like golfers, like anybody else, the price goes up. So we have to, economically, we've got to work out exactly what we want to do and how we want to do it and with whom. SBS will definitely be part of that process, but they will only want to do a certain amount of festivals. So we're now looking at an additional source of artists. So we're having some very interesting conversations, and I would expect to be able to say more in September. Well, certainly the second half of September when I'm back from Seoul.
That's great. Thank you. Question here is the trading update in the pipeline regarding Brick Live. The update was welcome today, but the market would like to see the numbers.
There will be as I said, Sarah and I have been working with an independent analyst now over the summer. We basically are expecting to release the analyst report in the early part of September to fit in with our interims. I'm very pleased that we've actually not done it to date because we will be very much more based on fact as opposed to assumptions. so the person writing it can see what we've actually achieved as opposed to what we might expect it to achieve. And that is certainly scheduled to be out in September, correct, Sarah, right?
That's great, thank you. Question here from Neil, who asks, I noticed the startup subscription service in the slides. Can you provide some further detail on that and what sort of uptake you're expecting?
We haven't launched it yet. That you're the first person who's seen that. It goes out to the artists, I think, in the next 30 days. So we've taken the view that you might be interested in seeing it, so we're putting it out. And it's a series of what they get. So some of them get part of a show at the Saatchi Gallery, some of them get part of a show in Seoul or whatever it is. The pricing is structured to value return to the artist, and we'll be very interested to see what the reaction is. But we've taken a lot of soundings, we've discussed with our existing artists, so we feel that those are fair numbers, and obviously we will keep that. It'll be obviously up to date on a monthly basis, so we'll obviously know more when we launch it.
That's great. Thank you, David. A number of questions around share price, which I know is important to everybody, including your good selves. But the question from Jack is, even with the shares issued, do you think the share price can get back to its highs?
Absolutely. Otherwise, why would I be here? I should be better off. I'm working as the largest shareholder in this company to see the share price get back to what I believe it should be. As I've said on several interviews with individual shareholders to date, the share price jumped earlier this year upwards. It then came down again, and possibly, I'm not quite sure why, because there was no news put out and there was no negative, no positive, and so it went right down to the sort of level it is now, and that certainly wasn't designed to do that. But obviously now it's all about news flow, understanding revenues, looking at numbers. All of these will be available to the shareholders in the forthcoming months. So I would hope that, as happened before, the share price will rise. I would expect it to. We have certain transactions we're in conversations with, which will, I guess you could call them game changers, and we'll have to see how we get on with those. But to me, every day, I don't look at it every 5 minutes. I'm not one of those kind of people. But the reality to me is share price is all, because that's important to me. It's important to everybody with options. Everybody on this call from our side either has shares, options, or a combination, and therefore, obviously, it's very important.
That's great. Thank you. I don't know what you can tell us, but Jamie asked a question. Can you tell us more about the Asian investor?
The Asian investor. Forgive me. What did we just announce, Sarah?
Sorry, from the broker option, the Asian investor, they don't want to be disclosed at this stage, but once we have the TR1s, we will. But it's a new investor. I think you can probably put 2 and 2 together of where they're domiciled based on the conversation today. And we're super excited to get them into the book. So watch this space.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. Just turning to a question from Neil. Thank you, Neil, for your question. Will future Kpop events be live streamed?
Well, that's an interesting subject, and it's relatively simple to explain. When we have SBS as a partner, they're a TV station who are doing this to create TV content. The first show we did, obviously, was primarily for their TV content. We voluntarily delayed the release of the product, and it was pretty much the show that was successfully broadcast in Korea was streamed. Going forward, first of all, with SBS, we've had conversations with SBS that says we want to stream parts live, we want to stream elements of the artist, because that's what the fans want to see, either live or shortly thereafter, and we want to respect the fact that you want to make a TV show. So everybody's agreed that that is possible. Obviously, it will involve additional money paid to the artist for certain streaming rights. It's incredibly important, which didn't happen first time round, that the artists are contractually bound to promote the streaming on their own sites. So if they're followed by 20 million people, you want the 20 million people to be to be on those sites. So all of this is being put together in a list. I've been to Korea 3 times since perhaps I last spoke to you, and we've agreed the principles of what we want to do. We've now got to then contractually put that together. In terms of live streaming, there will be times when SBS is not the partner, and in those times, it will be clearly able for us to completely live stream everything.
That's great. Thank you, David. Just returning to Start Art, if I may, what revenue is the Start Art London Fair likely to achieve? And a question from Graham about how many artists are on the Start Art platform.
I'm not sure if I'm able to answer those questions, Sarah, really, because they're not in the public domain. You must tell me.
I think
I can. Oh. Let me start with the Start Art. Yeah. Start Art Fair is a mixture of galleries. It is a mixture of artists. It's a mixture of shows within a building, the Sargent Gallery. Every inch of that building has now been sold, and therefore the project as a whole is a profitable project. It's. I think. I honestly can't remember the exact turnover, but it's better. We've done much better than we budgeted to do. In terms of the digital platform, by memory, there's currently we have something like 300 artists, I think, on the platform.
Approximately 350.
Okay, so I can't give you further information than that, but be happy, obviously, as and when the accounting process runs, we can ensure, certainly when we do the analyst report, we can certainly identify these questions, answers to these questions.
That's great, thank you. Turning to a question from Darren S. Will there be different lineups on both days at Frankfurt with no repeat artists?
I think it's a combination. There will be in Frankfurt. There will be individual S artists on different days. There will be S is the top level. There will be A artists that are separate on different days, but some of them will be repeated. And what we're also looking to do, let's use the term rookie. I think that's probably a good term. We're looking at bringing on brand new artists that are like really new to the people in Europe, and that's kind of the part of the area of the warm-up that we're looking at. So there's a whole load of combinations with the artists, but there will be some repeat artists, and there'll obviously be definitely some individual day artists.
Thank you very much indeed. Sarah, you'll notice there's a lot of questions that may be forward-looking around, when things are going to be profitable or not. What I may suggest, if I may, is we'll bag those and have a look at those after the meeting, and we can publish those separately. But there are a number of forward-looking statements there that I think would be probably sensible just to reflect on. So that a number of questions we've touched on as well around marketing, but there was one that I just saw was, why don't we sell the brand's merchandising and take a 20% cut of the profit? Maybe a comment or two on that.
I don't understand that.
I can comment, I think, if please.
Sorry, I see you.
Yes, yeah. So you can stop me, David, if I say something I shouldn't. That is something that we have to negotiate directly with each of the groups and what their rights and regulations are pertaining to that. Also, at the same time, we do appreciate that. And in some cases, we will have permission to do so with specific artists. However, we also have to be cognizant of the fact that we don't want those sales to negatively impact our own brand merchandising sales.
That's perfect answer, Nicola. Reality is we will be selling individual artist merchandise, but the main point is we've got to control that so that it's through our merchandising selling system that bands just can't turn up and sell their merchandising. Because, as Nicola said, we're here to protect our own brand and our own results.
That's great. And then I guess, obviously we're coming up to the half hour, but John asks why the Brick Live in the park was cut short in terms of number of days.
Nicola.
Okay, I'll come on that one. Look, obviously it's not ideal to cut it short. We understand that, but the current economic climate in the United Kingdom, and looking at what we've had some feedback from parents and families, it sort of seemed to stretch out too long. Our ticket sales in the latter 5 days were slightly weaker than the first 5 days, and we felt it better to optimize those first 5 days in both from our side as a company, but also for the families attending. So we've shortened it just to 5. We have offered anybody who purchased a ticket on the other 5 days can change or refund.
That's great. Thank you. David, thank you very much indeed to yourselves, to Sarah and to Nicola for taking the questions. And thank you to everybody for their questions this afternoon. And as I said, perhaps I can share with you those questions that may be somewhat forward-looking for your review. David, I know that investor feedback is always important to you and to other members of the management team, and I'll shortly redirect investors on the call to give you their thoughts and expectations. But I thought before doing so, if I may, David, just ask you for a few closing comments just to wrap up with, and then I'll redirect investors to give you their feedback.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think I made a mistake, and I'd like to apologise for that. I had promised originally that we would be doing a monthly webinar because I feel it's important to, well, I personally like the idea of communicating with one's shareholders. Because we didn't have that much to say in June, we thought we would just wait to July. I think that was perhaps wrong because there's always something to share, always answers to questions. So we will be committing on a sort of monthly basis, it might be 5 weeks, whatever, to continue the webinar process. And I think that would enable shareholders over the 12-month period to really get to grips with questions that they may have. We certainly will be doing more events. We certainly will be, there'll be lots more to ask questions about, let's put it that way. So I think that's another reason why we should have them on a monthly basis. I would like to feel that in 2023, certainly for the events that are in Central Europe or in London, that we will be able to find a way of inviting some of the shareholders to come to the events that we run. And obviously, Nicola has an open invite to any shareholders and their families who want to come to Brick Live in the Park. And please feel free to contact her or Sarah about that.
Please email me directly and I'll be able to give you a ticket code that you can download your tickets for.
So we'd be very happy to see you at Brick Live in the Park. And as I said, I would like the shareholders who did come to Frankfurt, I think frankly were blown away. And we would like to invite as many as that we can. And we're looking into how we can do that with the regulatory systems and everything. So I do hope that we will be able to meet more of you, share more of the opportunities to discuss. But we are committing, I believe, Sarah, to whether a month is 5 weeks or whatever, to be here every month to answer your questions.
Yep, correct.
That's great. David, Sarah, and Nicola, thank you so much for your time this afternoon and for updating investors. Can I please ask investors on this call not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of Live Company Group PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and may I wish you all a very pleasant afternoon.